Hello everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're going to make another fun block in Kimberbell's Red, White, and Bloom quilt/wall hanging project. And today we're actually going to make 3 blocks, but don't worry, they're all going to be the same. We're going to be focusing on these firework blocks right here. We've got firework going to the left, one right here, firework going to the right, and then another one up here, firework going to the left. So we'll actually make these 2 left ones first with the same embroidery file. Then we're going to flip it and bring up another file and make the one on the right. So by the end of this video, you will have the skills necessary to complete all 3 of those blocks. Okay, you ready? So go ahead and grab your plastic pouch system or plastic zip system that is labeled firework blocks, and let's take that over to the machine and let's get started learning how to make these blocks. Okay, we are at the machine and we're ready to get started. I've put a piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer into my hoop. Now I'm using an 8x8 hoop only because it's a little bit easier for you to see on camera with a larger hoop. But you can use your 5x7 hoop on this one. If you're following along in the instructions on page 22, look at the bottom right and it says the squared finished block, when we're all done and we're going to trim it up, is going to be 4.5 by 6.5 inches. And that tells me that we can easily use a 5x7 hoop with this to make these blocks, okay? So you can put your poly no-show mesh stabilizer in your hoop, whichever size you're using. Also, we're going to be making 3 of these blocks. And you're like, 3? I'm like, no, it's going to be good. It's going to be okay. Don't worry, because these are fairly easy blocks to do. And once I teach you how to make the first one, you're just going to replicate that 2 more times. So it'll be all good. So let's take a look at the screen on my embroidery machine. I have a Dream Machine just for reference in case you want to follow along. So we're going to load the design onto your machine. So I'm going to click on Embroidery. I'm going to go to my flash drive because I tend to keep all my files on a flash drive attached to the embroidery machine. And I have it in a folder called Red, White, and Blue. Now, because we're quilting as we go in this project, I want to load the quilting design first. So I'm going to go Quilting. And again, back to the instructions on page 22, we want to figure out what is the finished size of this block going to be. It's going to be a 4.5 by 6.5 inches. So the quilting design that I want to choose is a 4 by 6, which will just fit inside, allowing for seam allowances. So click on your 4 by 6. That's going to be perfect. I love that plaid design, really do. It makes the applique stand out. So I'm going to go ahead and click Set because I don't need to do anything to it. Now I'm going to add the applique design on top of this. If you can't add on your machine, don't worry. You're just going to stitch this design out first, then clear your machine, and then go back in and add the applique design and stitch that out. But if you're able to add designs, it saves you just a little bit of time. So I'm going to click Add. Go back to my flash drive, go back to Red, White, and Bloom, and now I'm going to be looking for the firework block. Now here they are, there's 2 of them. There's one that leans to the right and another one that leans to the left. We're going to make one of the one that leans to the right first. This is the one I'm going to teach you how to do it. Then we're going to come back, I'll show you how to load this design, and then we're going to make 2 of the one that leans to the left. So for right now, let's click the one that leans to the right. That's going to be fun. You don't have to do anything to it. Click Set. I brought it in right on top of that quilting design. You don't need to touch it at all. Click Embroidery. And we are ready to go. All right, so let's go back to the hoop cam. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the fabrics that you have on this and the thread that you want to put in. For the firework right now that leans to the right, they have it on a dark background. So I don't have the fabric kit, but I selected my own fabrics. So I went with a darker fabric, which is I'm going to use for the one that leans to the right. And then the next two, they have a lighter. They have a turquoise in the instructions and a white. I came up with two lighter kind of white fabric with pattern. This one will be for the one they use turquoise on. This will be for the one that they have like white with fireworks on it. So this is my own fabric collection that I had that I selected for this project. So I just made it work, but I also kind of went with a little bit of the theme colors that they have because they have a good idea as to where their placement's going to be on this quilt. So I kind of wanted to do that as close as I could, matching to theirs, because they don't have it where darks are right next to darks or lights are, right on top of lights. They have a good mix. So if you're choosing your own fabrics, this is the one I had chosen to go with it because it's more of a dark fabric in my collection. Then I also fused them all with the Palon 860 on the back, or you can use SF 101, and that helps support the cotton through the stitches. So if this is going to be the fabric that I want to use for my first block, I'm going to go ahead and find a matching thread that's going to look good on this. So I'm going to use this color thread, which is kind of a royal blue, in the top of the machine right now. So when we do the placement stitch, it'll be in blue. We tack down the batting, it'll be in blue. No problem, because you're not going to see any of that thread at all. Then when we put the fabric down and we tack it down and then we do the quilting, the blue thread will already be in the top of the machine. I do this because it saves me a step from switching from white thread to blue thread. When you do this placement stitch and the tack down stitch for the batting, that thread's not going to show at all. It's going to be underneath and inside the block. So it doesn't matter. You could use purple, you could use pink. I just choose to put this color thread, which is going to be for the following step of tacking down this fabric. I put that thread in now, so I don't have to do an extra thread switcheroo in the process. We do that enough. If there's a time that I could skip that one extra step and make it a little bit easier for myself, I do that. So I'm going to put this blue thread in the top of the machine. You pick your thread color that matches your fabric and put that in the top of the machine. And you're saying, well, what if I don't want it to matchy match? You could do that too. This ultimately is going to be the quilting that I'm going to use on this block. So I'm choosing a thread that will blend in and let the fireworks on this block and the applique shine. I don't want my quilting competing with a printed fabric and an applique. So that's why I chose to go matchy-matchy so that this quilting will blend nicely in the background and allow everything else to shine. That's why I chose this color. But if you want it to compete, or you have a solid color background and you want your quilting to stand out, then you pick that color thread. Say you had blue, like a solid blue or blue tonal, and you wanted white, go for it. Put the white thread on top, and then you'll be doing white quilting on that fabric. You pick the look that you want and be creative. This is a time that you can choose anything you want depending on the fabrics that you've chosen. So go for it. Put your thread color of choice up on the top of the machine, and let's get started. So you got your thread on top, load your needle, put your foot down, and let's stitch out the placement line for the batting. Okay, so now let's lay the batting down on top of that placement line. Just make sure you've got it covered nicely on all sides. You can either tape it down or hold it down like I do. Just keep your fingers away from the moving needle, and let's tack down the batting. Okay, so now let's take the hoop off the machine. Let's take this over to the table, and we want to trim away all of this excess batting. Okay, now we're back at the machine, and before I put my hoop back on, I just want to double check my bobbin thread and make sure that I have enough for the next step and the quilting, because we don't want to run out in the middle of the quilting. It's kind of a pain. It's doable, but if we can avoid it, I'd like to avoid it. So I always check to make sure I have enough bobbin thread in my lower bobbin area to get through the next few steps. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I need to pull out here my thread and re-thread it. It came out of the needle, so I'm going to re-thread that. Now we're going to do the placement line for the upper fabric, and we're going to leave, in my case, blue thread up in the top for this. Okay, so now you're going to lay the fabric down. If you have a directional fabric, make sure you have it facing up at this time. Mine's kind of can go any direction. It doesn't have to be one way or another. So I just kind of choose what might be my favorite area here. And then with blue thread up on the top of the machine, I'm going to tack this down. And again, I chose blue so it matches with the color fabric I have below. Here we go. You got this. We are now ready to quilt the block. That's the next pattern that's come up. This is a 2-minute stitch out, and again, I've chosen the blue to blend in with this fabric to let the fabric and the applique that's coming stand out. So choose the color thread of your choice, put it up on top, and let's stitch out the quilting design. I really like that look. You can see the quilting, it's subtle, but it's letting those fireworks pop. I love that. Okay, so now we're ready to start working on the applique part. So the first thing we're going to do is stitch a fuse detail, which I'm going to do my fuse in white like they have. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my thread out straight forward as I change my thread color. Always want to pull out your thread in the direction that the machine was built in to have thread come out. You don't want to pull it back up to the top because that will cause damage to your machine. So always pull it straight out. All right, so I've loaded white thread up on the top of the machine, and now let's stitch out the fuse detail. Here we go. Okay, so that was the fuse, and now I've chosen the gold color thread that I want to stitch my spark detail, and it's on a large spool. So I'm going to put this on my thread stand behind the machine. Just make sure if you do this, you keep the thread away from this hand wheel on the right side. I'm going to pull my white thread straight out, and now I'm going to load the gold up on top. Yeah, you don't want the thread near that hand wheel. I know I've mentioned it in another video, but it's really important because that can cause you to make a trip to the sewing machine shop to have it fixed, because that can get caught in that wheel so fast and bunch up, and then, yep, it's a trip to the sewing doctor. All right, so let's go ahead, thread the needle, and now let's stitch out the spark detail. Here we go, foot down, and away we go. Okay, very nice. So now I'm going to take the gold thread out of the top of the machine and again pull the thread towards you. And now we're going to stitch the firework body placement line. Now on our example that we're doing, which is firework number 1, the one that leans to the right, in the sample they show white glitter body with a red thread accent. So in order to do the placement line, I'm going to go ahead and put red thread in the top of the machine, and we'll stitch out the placement line, and then we'll also tack down the white glitter with this red. So it saves, again, another thread switch change in the top of the machine, because you're not going to see the placement line once we stitch over it. And we're going to do a red accent line on the glitter. It saves us a step. And I like being efficient as much as I can. Now, if you see here, when I threaded the machine, it got a loop. Get that loop out, because any loop like that will cause it to wrap around your foot and it'll break that needle in a split second. Ask me how I know. It's happened to me several times before I learned my lesson. So if you see a loop after you thread that needle, get that loop out before you touch anything else. All right, so red thread's up on top. Let's put the foot down and stitch out the placement line for the firework body. All right, so now we're going to get the white glitter out of your embellishment kit. All right, and this white glitter has that clear plastic film on it. So all you want to do is gently, carefully peel away that plastic top. Okay, because we don't want to stitch that in place. And then I'm going to go ahead, and because I'm doing it sideways, I know I'm not going to need all of it off. I'm just going to cut the plastic with enough off there that I know I have plenty of exposed glitter here, because I found that this stuff really likes to roll up, and if I'm going to have excess, I want to kind of keep it as flat as possible. I'm not going to use this piece right now. I'm only going to focus on this piece right here. So now what I'm going to do, and mind you, we didn't cut this, redo. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and place it up against the one line, and I'm going to scoot it over. I'm lined up with the placement line, and now I'm going to go just past it. Let's do that again. So I lined it up, giving myself 1/4 inch on the top. I'm lined up with the outside, and then I just gently scoot it over, lined up with the outside, and then I'm going to go just a little bit over that. That way I know I've covered out the placement line, but I'm also not wasting too much of the glitter fabric as well. So I'm going to put the foot down so it kind of holds it in place so I can grab my stylus. You can tape this down if you like, or just do what I do and just hold it down with the stylus. Once it starts stitching, it'll kind of keep it from moving anyway. So now we're ready to tack this glitter down. Make sure you're using the side that doesn't have the plastic, okay? You want the exposed glitter side. Let's go. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so now we're going to take the hoop off the machine. I just love that glitter. And now we're going to take this over to the table, and I'm going to very carefully trim around the excess glitter. Now, mind you, there's not going to be a satin stitch or anything covering this, so just trim it as nicely as you can around the rectangle. Let's go do it. Okay, we're back at the machine. That one was a little bit harder to cut straight because, like I said, it's an exposed edge, but do the best you can. That's all that matters. Okay, so this is all that we used of the piece of white glitter so far. So we have plenty. We could probably do another one over here if we wanted to, and plenty more. This is why I don't pre-cut my embellishments out of the embellishment kit. I use a solid piece that came with the kit, and then I just position it and try to maximize the amount of items I can get out of that piece. And a lot of the times I can get a lot more than what is required for the piece, and sometimes I can even get a whole nother quilt or tabletop or project out of that as well. Like if I wanted to make a second one of these. So a lot of the times I have enough materials left over to do a second. So that's why I don't pre-cut my embellishments. I'll do the fabrics, but I won't pre-cut the embellishments. Okay, so now we're ready to stitch the placement line for the firework tip. Now this tip is going to be red glitter. Let me get out my red glitter from last time. It's going to be red glitter, and it's recommending a white thread because we're going to do a white accent on top of this thread. Now you're going to probably get confused because on step 5 on the instructions on page 22, it shows white and blue. The white thread is what we're going to use right now because we're making firework 1. When we switch and make fireworks 2 and 3, we'll switch and use the blue thread. But for this block, firework 1 that we're working on, which is the white body with the red tip, you're going to put white thread in the top of the machine. So let's do that now. White thread up on top. Okay, so I've got white thread up on top, and let's stitch out the placement line for the firework tip. Okay, so this is my red glitter from the last time we did a firework, and I need to trim off more of this plastic so that I have plenty of exposed glitter to put down for this tip. So I get rid of that plastic. Now I have plenty. So now it's a game of what is the most efficient way of putting this down, this glitter down, so that I can maximize the amount that we get out of this. And I think this time I'm just going to go straight over here. Let's see. So if I come straight with this edge here, it's going to come down and go that way. And I think that would be good. So let's go there, position it to maximize the amount that you can get out of your glitter, whichever hole that you have from before. Just try to maximize that amount of glitter that remains and cover everything. Okay, we're ready to go. I'm going to put the foot down to try to hold it there a little bit. And let's tack down with the white thread this glitter. Foot down, and here we go. Yay, the machine tells me we're done. Okay, so there's a little bit of waste right here, but I like to leave 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch if I need to. I don't want to cut it too close because my worst nightmare is if I come through here and it's right by the edge and then it doesn't stitch and then I got to rip it all out and start over again. So I'd rather have a teeny bit of waste than not have it tacked down properly. It's just so much easier. Okay, so now that this is done, all we got to do is take this over to the table and we're going to trim away very carefully. Again, it is an exposed edge all the way around the outside of this triangle, and then this block is done. Then I will come back to the machine and I'll show you how to set up for the next block. Isn't that pretty? Anything with glitter, I am all over. Just love the glitter applique. Okay, so this block is now done. I've taken it out of the hoop and I'm going to set it aside. Now we're going to do the same thing with a different block. So let's go to the screen of my embroidery machine here. There we go. Straighten it out just a smidgy. Okay, so now we're finished embroidering. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to go home and wipe all of this out because we're done. Okay, delete, select a pattern. Okay, so we're going to hit embroidery. We're going to go to the flash drive. I am going to go to red, white, and blue. And I'm going to go to the quilting design because I need to reload the quilting. Which, what size was it? It was a 4x6. Okay. Click set. Now we're going to add, go back to the flash drive, and red, white, and blue. And now I am going to look for the firework that is leaning toward the left, which is this one here. We've done that one. Now we want to go to the one toward the left. And that's the one. Click set. We don't have to move it or do anything, so click embroidery. Now we're going to be making 2 of this block. It's the exact same steps as what we did the first block. Exactly the same. The only difference was pulling up this file versus the other file. So what we can do now is you can rewind this video if you need to and follow the same steps from the, let's go to the hoop cam, from the hoop and the poly no-show mesh to your threads. The only difference that we're going to do is that the firework is going to be facing the other direction. The body and uncolor, everything will be the same. But your tip, when you get to step 5 in your instructions, where we did white thread at that very last step for the tip, you're going to want to put blue thread. So this firework is a blue body with a white tip and then blue thread on that white tip. Everything else is identical. You might want to switch up the color that you quilt your block in. Like this one is going to be in this fabric. So last time I had a blue fabric and I quilted it in blue. This one, it's more of a white fabric, so I'm going to quilt it in white. Everything else is the same. The steps are identical. You just select the thread that you want for the quilting stage, and then make sure you use blue thread for steps 5 and 6 where we're working with the firework tip. All right, you guys got this. So let's go ahead and fast forward through this and make the second block. Isn't that pretty? And just like that, you have a second block done. Isn't that cool? All right, so now you've got one more left to make, identical. So if your machine says finish embroidering, just click OK. And whoops, it's saying my carriage has to move. There we go. Okay. Then it will bring you right to the very beginning of the block. You don't need to load the pattern or anything. You are ready to make a second one. My second one is going to have this as the backing. So my threads are going to be identical. White for the background, gold, blue for the fuse, red for the accent of the body, and blue for the accent of the tip. So go ahead now, you can rewind whichever version you like, the first version where we went in detail or the last fast forward version. And I want you to make one more of this block identical. The only thing that's going to change on my part is the background fabric, okay? And I'll meet you back here when you get that done. So just make one more block identical to that. And I'll meet you right back here. And just like that, with the power of TV magic, we have a third block done. Isn't that pretty? Love it. Okay, so let's take the third block out of the hoop, because now we can trim these blocks up, all three of them. Okay, so we have this one, and this one, and this one. Aren't those fun? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's trim them up. So these blocks are going to be trimmed up to 4.5 by 6.5. And if you look at the outside edge right here, this outside seam is the tack down for the fabric. It's also a cut line. So they literally tell you where to cut. So I'm going to go with the first one. Mind you, there's two lines here. One's a quilting line. You don't want to go for that one. You're going for the outside line, the outside line. So I just line her up, and then I'm going to move just a smidgy past, just a smidge. Hold the ruler down. Can I see the stitch line through the ruler? Yes, I can. All right. And I'm going to cut that block off that. Okay. Now we're going to measure. This should be 6.5. So if I go to 10 on my ruler, it should land at 16.5. And it does. I see the stitch line. Line it up on my ruler to 16.5. Hold it down. Can I see the stitch line underneath the ruler? Yes, I can. Then it's good to cut. Okay. So we got half of it done. Okay, now we're going to look at 4.5. But again, the first one, I just need to look for the outside stitch line, line it up, and go just a smidgy past. Can I see the stitch line through? Yes, I can. Through the ruler is what I meant to say. And there we go. Now we're going to measure 4.5. So I put it at 10. Should go to 14.5 on my mat. So there's 14.5. Can I see the stitch line? Yes, I can, just under the ruler. And then I trim it up. And we have a perfectly trimmed block. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so let's fast forward and do the next two the exact same way. Let's put that one aside. Here we go. Okay, got my little clean them out there. Aren't those adorable? Look at that. We got 1, 2 that are facing that way to the left, and 1 that's facing to the right. Aren't those cute? I love it. So you just completed the fireworks blocks that are 3 blocks of the project. Look at that. You did it. So I hope you had as much fun today making these blocks as I did. Please stay tuned here on Jelly Molly TV for more videos on this project, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel because it truly helps me do what I do for you, and I truly appreciate that. And also click the like button and the bell notifications. That way you're notified every time I upload a video. And I have been a little bit behind on my videos lately, but I am getting caught up. We had some house things happen, and I'm back on it now. So we are going to be having a lot more fun videos. We're going to be working on this red, white, and bloom. We're going to be finishing up the candy corn. We're almost done with that. Candy cane lane. And we're doing 2 scoops and cup of cheer. And it's really fun. Take Me to the Beach Pillow by Lori Kent Designs. So we've got a lot of projects, a lot of videos that are going to be coming out here real soon. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you here again on Jolly Molly TV. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.